I think the more we look at this BBC case, the more we realise there are different aspects to it. I think there's four, and those four are quite interesting. The first two are issues about desultory indifference. Firstly, by the police, who didn't respond positively to the family's concerns in April, when there is now a very clear impression being given that there was a commitment of a crime knowingly or unwittingly as a possibility, and that is now governing the further progress of this case. The second of these four issues is that the BBC was indifferent and did nothing. The BBC's silence for 7 weeks following the 19th of May contact. Both of these issues, both of these periods of inactivity and disdain are significant and go a long way towards explaining the anger of those people who brought the first story to the press attention. Now, the other two issues are more legal and more concerning in a way, and they go to explain the silence and the anonymity, the reluctance of the Sun newspaper and of the BBC to name the so-called anonymous presenter, who is widely named, whose name is widely circulated on the internet and abroad, this suspected presenter who has been suspended. That suspension itself goes a long way to identifying who that is. So you just look for his absence on screen. Now, the first is the potential criminality of his actions. So, and this is mixed up with a fierce homophobia which is noticeable around the internet, and it's very ugly. Now, it's partly to do with the exchange of salacious photographs, but it's also to do with the abusive language and the threats that were allegedly made by the anonymous presenter to the victims. Not only one, but certainly two. So this is now attested by the second victim, another youth, but this time of somebody who is over 20. And the number of individuals contacting the tabloids is now rising, at least to 4. I suspect it will go on rising. And a lot of the concerns and problems relating to these two issues of potential criminal behaviour are linked to the Cliff Richard case, and it's not surprising that the BBC is treading carefully, because the BBC was found wanting in the Cliff Richard case, where they sent a helicopter and pursued him when, although he was suspected, he was never accused, and so he was tried and tarred by media suspicion. So the court, following Cliff Richard's response to this, legal response to this, and serious damages, the court now is more cautious about the media and the wider public's right to know, and this won't happen now until charges are made, if criminal charges are pertinent, and this is about a right to privacy, which goes beyond simply suspecting that somebody has done something. But of course, we see shoplifters walked away in handcuffs. Where is their right to privacy? People who are charged on the street, where is their right to privacy before they are charged? But we can understand why the BBC is so reluctant, and we can understand perhaps why the Sun is reluctant. It's not necessarily because they don't have enough suspicions. They may well have enough suspicions. They may well have seen the evidence, But until somebody has been charged, if there's a criminal case to answer, that becomes quite difficult. In the case of Philip Schofield, there was no criminal case to answer. And this then takes us down to the issue of responsibility. But just before we leave the Cliff Richard thing, if, for example, it could be proven that the anonymous presenter had no idea that the youth was under 18, and indeed if there was connection with a website where the minimum age is 18, then I think there's a very good defence for that presenter, legally. I think he's on shakier ground probably when it comes to the abusive threats, and of course we have no idea why he was parting with all that money. There may well be other issues that have been alluded to, of course, online. Why would they not have been? But I don't intend to go into them here. The fourth issue, which I think is important, is the issue where Jeremy Vine becomes a significant player. What do you think? What do you think we would probably call a collection of people who are telling these stories, if it goes on from 4 and becomes more of that? What's the collective noun for a group of youths? Would it be a tumescence of allegations? I don't know. But anyway, the second issue here, or the fourth issue here, is the reputation, the good name of the BBC, which of course is highly questionable at the moment. And that is often an issue that is central to a person's employment contract. If somebody brings the good name of the employer into disrepute, then they can be sacked, and it's a sort of dismissing issue. And I think this is a central issue, whether it's criminal or not. And a lot of this will depend on whether telephone calls were made in the office. But equally, given the prominence of this individual, there may well be a case to answer about dismissal simply because of his prominence and because of the scurrilousness of the story. Now, this is where, as I say, Jeremy Vine comes in, and his calling for the Star to come out and talk about what's happened. George Monbiot says that otherwise it's very difficult for the BBC to negotiate its way forward. It's very difficult land to negotiate. Jeremy Vine has said it's just terrible to be wrongly named, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who have been wrongly named on the media, and who knows where that will lead legally. As for Jonathan Code on Radio 5, a lawyer on Radio 5, he said anyone can name anyone on social media and seemingly get away with it. Well, I don't think that's true. I've seen stories posted on social media recently that have been pulled, and I'm sure that there are legal letters that may have been sent. I don't think it's true that you can name somebody on social media and get away with it. I've gone out of my way to do something which I've never done before, and I've literally removed messages. I've gone through the comments and removed comments which I think are intruding on this privacy issue. But I may not have got everybody. I may not have got them all. But I've tried anyway. And so, as I say, I think those four issues are the issues which lie at the heart of this problem. Number one and number 2 are about the delay and the failure of the police, first of all the police and then the BBC, to take this seriously. And number 3 and 4 are about the difference between criminal action and the issue of reputation and responsibility. So it is very complex.